Now, this next story on the list, we have Zuckerberg himself
Mm.
backing off of the old Facebook censorship policy, which is really big for me, believe it or not, for two reasons. One, under the old policy, posts about sexual harassment and posts about discrimination were censored,
Mm.
even if you were trying to help.
Super
And
interesting.
then two, I consider myself a amateur farmer now. They really crack. It's really weird what they do to like farmers. It's like, I was trying to buy a very specific kind of pig, and they were
Mm-hmm.
like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, you can't do that here." I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"But literally, this is like the farm exchange. Like, you have a marketplace for farm exchange. Like, yeah, but you can't just be buying animals." And I'm like, "Your entire thing is listings of animals." And they're like, "You get a strike." And I was like,
Wow.
"Okay, okay, I don't know." But it just came out of nowhere, and I was just like, "This is how like rural people communicate now." Like,
Right.
there's no websites for local businesses where I am. It's just Facebook pages. And it's just people like, I got a cow. You want to buy a quarter of my cow? And that's how it goes. But I guess you have to know the magic words to like fly under the radar. Other, because if you're too explicit about it, they're like, whoa, 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 you can't, you can't be doing that.
Yeah.
Can't be buying living creatures. And I'm like, what do you think this is? It's very strange. Can you
But
fill
they
this in?
but they're listed on the Facebook Marketplace, and then you try, or you put out
100%.
a call asking for a specific type of
No,
pig.
so they're listed, and
Yeah.
I like commented like, "Hey, gonna DM you. Definitely interested. We're like an hour away. We could take care of like the pickup and the vaccines or whatever." And the person like responded and was like, "Yeah, sounds great. Can't wait to have a call." And then Facebook was like, "Shut this down. We're not doing any of this. This
Wow.
violates like terms of service." And it was just like, do you think pigs is like a euphemism? Like what are we talking about here? Like I don't even understand.
Yeah.
Very strange. Somebody got in trouble for posting about barn cats. And they were
Ooh.
like, I have like 12 barn cats ready to go. I want them to go to good homes. I want to make sure the barns are like up to spec so the cats have good lives. And Facebook was like, this is animal cruelty. You can't have barn cats. I'm like, I don't rural America disagrees. Like I don't know, it just isn't. That's not a thing. But
Wild.
it's very interesting. Their
And it's
policies are
also
very
interesting to me that they
were
can't differentiate. Like, I understand, like, if some person is like buying animals to abuse them off of Facebook, like,
100%,
that can be a
100%.
problem. But, like, shouldn't they at this point be able to differentiate between like farmers or actual people? I don't know how they would, but like, and maybe that's why he's just like, I hands up, like, new administration, Trump administration, like, I'm just gonna have it be a free for all and the people can discern themselves. But it's like, that's super interesting. Also, on your first point, that all these like discrimination and harassment um, posts were being censored. How were they being censored? Like flagged and then taken down,
They
or?
get flagged and taken down. If I even run ads like on Google, like pay-per-click ads, we used to run ads. If you run ads for like sexual harassment or like sexual assault, because that's what somebody searches if they've experienced that and they need help, uh, pay-per-click would like flag you, kick your account, put you on a strike system, and then you'd have to like go through this extended process to talk to a real human being and be like, "Hey, not for nothing, but like we're trying to help." And they would like reinstate you for 6 weeks and you just get flagged again, like over and over and over again. It's just like, all right, I guess you're not getting our ad money, you know?
Yeah. And there's no one really you can appeal to who's like a human being. It's just all like
Getting
so
a human being on takes so
automated.
long. We
Yeah.
finally got big enough to get our like own YouTube person or whatever that we can talk to. Even that, it's like you email them, they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll see. Right?
Yeah.
Like, well, maybe we'll talk.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, do you think, so for you, it's like a net positive that this
Yeah,
is happening?
also, I think free speech is a good thing. And I do think social media has become like a place of public discourse to an extent.
Me too.
And well, listen, the feds had a lot of back end control over the censorship. Let's not forget the CIA was an early investor in Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like there was a set up process for Twitter Facebook, all these things to comply with the needs of the administration. And I don't
Yeah.
care who's empowered. I'm not playing partisan politics here, but like whoever's in power will abuse that. That's scary to me. Um, damn sure it's going to get abused right now, starting any minute, right? If it still exists. So the idea that it's going away to me seems like a net positive. What do you think?
Yeah. I am conflicted. So it's interesting. In general, I just see the world shifting, which is why we're on YouTube, like
Yeah.
to these platforms. And for the most part, I think, like, for me personally, like, they've been somewhat positive. Like TikTok, just being able to connect with more people, even LinkedIn, being able to and I think the creator economy is a good thing for people. If you're able to just create, like, educate people or create content that helps people in any way and make money off of it, I think it's a good thing. That said, I think you can be Alex Jones. Like, I logged on to X last night, Twitter, and the very first person on my feed was Alex Jones, the guy who was sued for defamation by the Sandy Hook families and has to pay them $1 billion. He was the first person on my X feed talking about how good it is that Trump is going to pardon the January 6th insurrectionists. So I'm like, this is absurd. Like, I'm like, and I think for people who are able to like know fact versus fiction, like, we'll be okay. But there are a lot of people who won't know. Like, they won't know if something has been doctored, or like if a video has been taken out of context, or like if they just won't know, or like who's paying for that information to get out there. And not that we knew all of that beforehand anyway, but I think that it will open up like Instagram to be more of like a wild, wild west where like anything goes. The only thing that I think could change that is Section 230, if somehow it gets overturned, because Section 230 allows that all of the tech platforms, like if you and I here today said something completely made up, you and someone viewed it, you or I could be sued for defamation, but YouTube couldn't, because they're just the platform that is facilitating this. They're not like they're absolved of that.
Got it.
So unless something happens to Section 230, I mean, just anything can go out there. And I think people are desperate in a way, or not desperate, like people want to share, like to say things. People love like being able to have a voice on like a deep emotional level too. So I
Yeah.
think people are going to be probably posting more, posting their takes, whether they're grounded in like any expertise or not, like I don't know. So I think it's not the greatest thing, but my take is like, this is just happening, so we should just embrace it to an extent and move through it and think about like, who are the people like you who like actually what you're talking about when it comes to employment law. So like you're like, but like you, like, imagine if like, I don't know, like my like next door neighbor just started making up things about employment law and started a YouTube channel. He was like, yeah, if your boss grabs your butt, you can kill them. Or like you can like people can say these things, like, and
Yeah.
just it'll be out there. So I mean, it's just, so I think there should be more people then participating in these platforms if they're existing and if this is how we're getting information. And it's funny, I said this on LinkedIn and some woman was in my comments and she was like, you're supporting fascism. And I was like, what? I was like, number one, do you know what I do? Number two, like I what is your alternative? What are you saying we should do? Just give up, or like just like, I don't know what the alternative is. So
Was she referencing, because there was that moment during the Biden administration where they had that I don't remember what they called it, but it was like the Ministry of Truth or something. Um, and they had that very nice lady who had a lot of weird TikToks, like Harry Potter themed TikToks about misinformation. And a lot of the things that she like labeled as misinformation were later proven true, I think. So it was like almost like this is not a truth. That lady might have been referencing the propaganda that kind of was being used as truth for a period of time. Like maybe, I don't know. That's a weird thing to say to you. That wouldn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, but maybe she was, I don't know what she was referring. I think she was referring to this idea that like it's basically just like billionaire Musk and billionaire Zuck like controlling the platforms, and
Yeah.
then Donald Trump, and like that we're veering into this, that like free speech just means more hate, and that like there will still be defamation lawsuits, and that all of this will happen, which I get, but I'm like, what, how do you, I don't see a point in turning your back to it completely, especially when I see the positives in it too.
Yeah.
It's not like we're talking about 4chan or like the darkest corners of the web.
Yeah. Listen, fortunately, it's not all bad. Kidding,
Like
kidding. Um,
16chan.
yeah, right. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think we come down the same way on this one.
Yeah.
It's an interesting. Also, I really enjoyed that, like how quickly after the election he was like, and Dana White's on the board of Meta now, and I'm gonna end all of the anti-conservative um filtering that we do, which is not what he admitted, but kind of was like how it was taken by the conservatives. And it was just like, oh, you're scared. You're
Yeah.
very scared.
Oh,
Like
totally.
this was like kissing the ring, right?
Yeah, he like threatened to throw him in jail.
I think it's also really interesting that he moved their fact checkers or whatever these people are called to
Hmm.
Texas from California.
Hmm.
And it was just like, I know what you're doing there. Like, that's pretty explicit. Those people aren't going to move. So, like, you're just hiring a new class of people with a different bias
For
to do this
sure.
job. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, all right. This
Shall we?
one's weird. McDonald's backs away from DEI, diversity and inclusion.
What do you think?
I mean, listen, inclusion is always important, but I don't know how valuable inclusion is at the fast food level.
Yeah.
I mean, Walmart has also backed away. And the thing about like these entry level employers, there's never really an issue because there's just not enough people. Like we live in a society where there's not enough people in most of the country to do these
Yeah.
jobs. So it's not like you ever walk into Walmart and they're like, we don't let this race work here. We don't let this or that, right? Like it's more like you can breathe, sign you up, right? So I don't know. It would certainly make a difference to have inclusion at the corporate level,
Yeah.
McDonald's or Walmart. Like those jobs are valuable and they are gonna that kind of inclusion would matter.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think there's an issue with inclusion at entry level. That's part of the problem is that
Right.
the exclusion comes from trying to get past entry level.
Right. Do you think it changes like when you're pursuing, discrimination cases? I guess for this question, I'm referring more to the corporate level. But if you're like pursuing a discrimination case, like do you think that like them de-emphasizing this like changes how you approach things?
Definitely, but not in the way you'd expect. Do you remember when Mark Cuban was on Twitter going crazy about DEI
Yeah.
and he said a bunch of stuff that was actually illegal? And
What,
the
yeah, what did he say?
he was basically like saying like there's no reason you can't prefer to hire someone like because of their race or because of their gender. And
Yeah.
and then the head of the EEOC chimed in and was like, "Hey, by the way, that's actually illegal. That's what these laws say you can't do. Like you can't choose to hire someone on the basis of their gender, whether
Right.
it's for the purpose of inclusion or the purpose of exclusion. You can't do it. That's what's illegal." And like he told her she was wrong. She was like, "I assure you, I actually write the rule on this. Like it is what I say it is by definition. That is my purview. And it
Yeah.
has always been this." And I think he just eventually was like, oops, and like ghosted the conversation. But like 40% of DEI programs make that mistake. There's a
Mm,
lot of like fake DEI experts who are just running nonsense programs. And I say this as somebody who loves diversity and inclusion. Like I think representation matters. I think it has real value. And most of those programs were amazing. Um, I think affirmative action had a lot of real value. Some high percentage, like maybe as high as 40% of diversity inclusion was just patently illegal the way it was rolled out. And
Mhm.
like it was fun to bring those cases to an extent. It also felt bad because you would bring the case and they would be like, absolutely not. We did everything right. And then the court would just be like, yeah, yeah, go ahead and cut a check. We don't need a trial on this. Like your policy is on its face illegal.
Mm.
But it feels bad because you're like hurting people who wanted to engage in good things.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard to walk away from free money, but it's also you don't want to hurt good people. Like they were good people. They didn't do the reading. They didn't hire a real expert, whatever they needed to do. Um, so I mean, I don't know. It's a very
I feel like it's also just at this point, DEI has become this like conservative buzz phrase where like it doesn't even mean what it means. Like it was funny over the holidays. I was visiting my boyfriend's parents, and they are um one is more conservative than the other, the but they're both like Republicans. And one of them, I was talking about how we were once, my boyfriend and I were confronted at the grocery store by our neighbor who was angry that that there were like two or three Amazon packages that they had buzzed up to um, his apartment for. So he starts berating us. Like I had never been like just approached and berated like that before in my life. He starts like screaming at us. He tells he tells my boyfriend he's a terrible artist. He says
oh
that we're like a stain on the community, literally for these Amazon packages, like buzzing up to, which is like it's happened to anyone who lives in a city. So anyway, he was wearing an army T-shirt. I didn't know if he was in the army or not. He was in his like early 70s. So I was like, sir, like take a step back. You are accosting us. And um, I see you're wearing an army t-shirt. It sounds like you need help for PTSD potentially. And that like shut him down completely because I was almost like trying, like I like stood our ground, but I didn't say
yeah.
something that was like, I was like, get help, please. So anyway, I was telling my boyfriend's dad this story, and he's like, PTSD, isn't that just a DEI phrase? And I was like, oh God, that's just like, it's become so distorted from like it's like become such an ugly. I'm like, no, no, no. PTSD is like a mental health diagnosis that a doctor, tells you that's what a doctor says. Maybe he was trying to connect it with like, oh, you have a mental health condition in the workplace and then you have to accommodate that person or whatever. Maybe, but I just feel like it was like an acronym that he thought was some sort of woke BS. Um, and it's just been so morphed into like the trans thing where it's like
Yeah.
everybody is trans. And it's like I remember some coach or some like head of an athletic department was asked about how many trans athletes there were. Like, and they were expecting he would be like thousands and thousands. And he was like, 5. And like
Exactly. Yeah.
like, so it's just, I don't know. I think it's not a phrase that should be used anymore because it's been so like destroyed. Just
Every time we have a PTSD case and you're doing like jury selection, people will bring up the people who weren't at 9/11 who felt they had PTSD from 9/11. And it's
mm,
just it's just like a I don't know how this became so pervasive. So it's always PTSD is soldiers killing people,
yeah.
postal workers going postal, which is horrible,
Yeah.
or oh, it's those people who weren't even at 9/11 who they have PTSD, and it's just like, hold on, you have no idea what you're talking about. But like, we're not going to be able to educate you, so we gotta figure out how to get you out of this jury pool without
Right.
telling the court like because they're an idiot, they gotta go. Like it's just like
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. So people will like they'll say in the jury selection, like, I don't like this is bogus. Like,
yeah, PTSD is not real, or
yeah,
PTSD is just for soldiers.
just for
And
like
they'll
nine.
even say things like it's just for combat soldiers. Like, I don't,
Oh my
you
gosh.
don't think that people getting bombed, like living in a city somewhere, who
Yeah,
aren't soldiers are getting PTSD? Like, you don't think, like,
totally. Oh my gosh. Those
All the
must
people
be,
at ground zero, right? Like,
yeah, that's crazy. Those must be such interesting like conversations or like seeing
oh,
how the jury pool or what people say and like how you're able to like decide who's like biased too much and who's like okay.
it's so uncertain. I can remember early in my career, I had a race case, and I had this retired state trooper, handlebar mustaches, 70s, 80s, whatever it was, ramrod straight, like, like everything. And I just saw him and I had three bans where I didn't have to explain why I was banning the person. I just was like, race case, law enforcement. This guy I think is from upstate. Like, the handlebar mustache, like the whole package. I was like, get that guy out of here. That guy approached me in the court cafeteria at lunch and was like, "Hey, I really believe in your client. I hope you win." And I was just
Wow.
like, "Oh my God, I'm the piece of shit." Like,
Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating.
it's
The, like,
me. Um,
had he twirled his handlebar
he
mustache?
did not, but
I
I
guess the
think
handlebar goes down like this,
I think
but
he waxes it. I think like
oh,
it was the real deal. I was like, "Oh boy, this guy." I could just
yeah.
picture him like, you know how fast you were going?